Yeah, I think I got half a cold. 4 minutes before 10. Hello. Back for one more. Got a request from Easter Sunday to put one of his videos on the channel. Link is in the description. Go ahead and sub to Easter Sunday, a frequent visitor to the Hamster channel. All right, let's hear what Easter Sunday has to say. Kind of digging those sunglasses, though, yo. I like it.
On the new day, Senator Charles Schumer,
Chucky's in love,
of the United States Senate, serving out of New York.
Yes, sir. A radical communist
proposed the idea that all of these illegal migrants that have come to the United States should receive amnesty because we do not have enough workers to continue the growth of the economy.
Why do you hate people, man? Why? It's only 35 million people. Come on, dude. Come on, bro. Have you no heart? You evil man.
And
misogyny.
All of the jobs that need to be filled.
Of course, I'm just giving him a hard time. Go ahead.
This is a very ironic and illogical position for his political party because simultaneously they are promoting abortion on a grand scale.
Oh, come on now. That's female choice. Hey, fat dog. Saw your message earlier. No, I didn't do any call in. Not sure if I'm going to do it tonight. My freaking throat is killing me. Snakey's back. Zombero's here. Craig Furness. And Fat Dog. Now, I also understand that our buddy, One Fastack, is in the hospital or he's getting treatment for some kind of heart thing. I don't know what's going on with him, but, say a prayer, best wishes to him. Hope everything works out for him. But yeah, that heart shit, the older we get, it's not good. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
And one could look at it and argue the great replacement theory is being pushed, but that is not the reason I made this video.
Kimosabi, you talking conspiracy theory, yo.
I think something is going on with society that Senator Charles Schumer or the Democrats or the Republicans.
It doesn't matter. Either party, it's the same shit. Everybody knows if they wanted to have more children born in America and get more people married, they would change the frigging laws to make it more equitable with respect to child custody. Alimony would get tossed out on its ass because it's a long dead patriarchal oppression of men. All that stuff. No fault divorce. Gone. Now, if they want that to happen and they want more people being born here in the USA, we could do that, but they won't. Will they? Pretty easy to see why. Well, we can't have women becoming mothers. Can't have that.
Or even most people, either in the United States or any other country on earth, have not come to grips with. And I would like to talk about where this belief comes from before I expound upon it any further.
Okay.
Back in the 1960s, the National Institute of Mental Health ran an experiment under the direction of scientist John B. Calhoun.
Okay.
They wanted to see what mice would do if they had a utopia environment in which they would never lack for resources and there was always food and water available.
The mouse utopia. Yes.
What they discovered with this utopia population is at first it exploded, but then it collapsed and ultimately it went extinct.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is baffling because obviously it wasn't a case of resources. And what they hypothesized is that the mice, because they no longer had to struggle for the resources, in other words, they no longer had to struggle to get food and water and shelter, that basically they fell to abnormal behavior patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And they inevitably just slowly just stopped reproducing. They stopped struggling. There was a lot of strange behaviors that were experienced, including random violence between mice. Female mice would abandon their babies. And there were these specific mice called the beautiful ones that would just nurse themselves all day long and isolate.
I think it started out as a research into how many people can you crowd into a big city kind of thing. Not sure 100%, but yeah, I think we're familiar with it. Go ahead.
And inevitably, the mice just stopped reproducing. And that was basically the end of the Utopia experiment.
And the beautiful, beautiful mice that just sit there all day and preen themselves and look pretty. Yep.
I am of the belief that globally we are engaged in a human Calhoun experiment. Now, the resource in our case, though, is not food and water.
Ooh.
What it truly is, it's validation through the internet. It's the dopamine hits. When you go on social media.
Yeah.
This is ultimately going to lead to the Calhoun experiment, and this is why.
Okay.
Why would somebody continue to push into relationships with other human beings when no other human being, and this especially applies to women, can give somebody unlimited amounts of validation?
You mean like your cell phone? I mean, you have to admit that like Twitter, I used to be on Twitter. It is kind of, you do get a little high, people responding to you, but I get it.
It's just not within any other human being. And it's just a natural tendency. If somebody isn't feeling what they need to feel, or they just feel like they need sunshine up their assholes, to go on social media and talk to that mystery friend that they might have online, or that group that keeps them going.
I was thinking about getting some stuff. I hear you. I'm just giving me a hard time. Yeah.
And sure, yeah, they're just friends. Of course they are. Well, there's no harm intended at all.
Well, I mean, you could make the argument as well for, some of the men's channels as well. It's kind of a hit, you're on the channel right now. That's kind of cool, right? And you talk to people, and once in a while you get to talk to, get on with Pop or something or whatever. Yeah, it's kind of neat. I like it.
But inevitably what happens is it destroys monogamy. Once monogamy is destroyed, then, your marriages are destroyed. Then you start to question whether or not you're even going to have relationships once you start seeing all kinds of different colors and flavors thereof. And inevitably, everyone just gives up and starts isolating. And basically, if you go out in the streets, I wouldn't be so hard to argue that we're seeing the same things in our cities, in our streets right now that was experienced in that mouse utopia at the National Institute of Mental Health. And this is a global phenomenon. If you study how birth rates globally are collapsing, they're estimating that by 2030 or 35, like only half of women between the ages of 20 and 35 will actually have children.
Or be married or something. Yeah. I think it was be married by 2030 half. But I mean, it isn't that much different now. It's like 47, 48% the way it is. So, yeah.
I honestly believe that at this point, we're going to see the next and final wave of feminism, which is going to push for the abandonment of childbirth altogether. That's also another topic, and I don't want to get off track here. But it's a global phenomenon, whether it's happening in China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, or Iran. They're all experiencing this, and they're all trying to approach it in different ways, but it's pretty much in futility. Even China, which is trying to promote ultra masculine men and wants to try to cut down the internet time on children, the problem they're having is they're still experiencing the population decline.
They've been in decline obviously it was caused by the to some degree the policies of the communist government, is one child and all that, et cetera and so on. Now, let me get out my where's my Alex Jones brand tinfoil hat? It's got to be here somewhere. Now, how many decades has, some folks around the world talked about overpopulation? We're all going to die because we've got too many people, right? Population of the world just exceeded 8 billion for the first time, I think, this week, right? So these greenie weenies have been screaming about this shit. We're going to run out of resources. We're going to run out of this. We're like, okay. So if their goal was to reduce the population, how would they go about doing such a thing? Well, let me count the ways. Birth control pills and abortion. Pushing women into a career, which has the added benefit of having them pay tax. You can't tax motherhood, right? You see, you could call me a conspiracy theorist, whatever the hell you want. I think there might be something to it. Go on.
And I suspect this is because the same internet is running their infrastructure in their entire society. But yet again, that's another conversation for another time. Inevitably, though, this internet is going to cause a Calhoun experiment, and we're starting to see it now.
Well, I mean, to some degree, it's when it comes to the dating stuff. I mean, it's pretty obvious. The signs are pointing to the vast majority of women are wanting the very tiny little slice of men. 6 foot tall, whatever, all that kind of shit. There aren't that many of those men. So are we getting to that point here where relationships are almost going to be over? Because the men that they want, they don't have to get married. They can get all the ass they want, and so on. I don't know.
Now, here's where it's going to get really interesting, and it's circling back to politics. Currently, on the other side of the planet, there's a G20 summit, including there was a big announcement about global governance for the 21st century.
Sure.
And how they're going to tackle climate change, and they're going to make the world a better place through global governance.
Yeah.
Well, guess what they're going to need for that global governance? They're going to need a global means of regulation and control, which means the internet. And of course, once everybody goes online and you have the internet, then the Calhoun experiment begins yet again, globally. So the global government will lead to a global population collapse and arguably a global extinction.
Now, I might disagree with you just a little bit here. What makes you think there isn't a global government currently? Might not be out in the open, but there's been talk about some, stuff like that.
So Charles Schumer, back to you, pal.
Chucky.
And your illogical party platforms.
Are they illogical, though? Are they?
I think in a few short years, you're going to have a hard time even trying to import workers anywhere, because not only are we all going to be facing third world status because of climate change mandates, we're simply, no one's going to be reproducing anymore, as we're all online, and no matter where you go, anywhere, all over the world, all you're going to see is people just staring into your smartphones. The zombie apocalypse is here, and behold, for these are the days of the children of the beast.
Oh, I can't disagree. I can't really disagree. I mean, there's a lot of shit going on that nobody knows. Some people suspect, but there's a lot of people are like, you're just a conspiracy. You're one of the Alex Jones types, right? Right. So TNFS. I'm 6'3", good looking and whatnot. Where's my glamour? I don't know. You're the one getting all the poon. Why would those women want to marry? Well, what is the point? Really, why? There's no societal contempt for women who have children out of wedlock, right? They do. It's their choice. It's strong, powerful. You go, girl. Fishes and bicycles. But there might be something to it. Unless you go to the extreme depopulation idea, and I don't think anybody's talking about that now. If you can naturally somehow, but again, we could get kicked off of YouTube if we go too far. Loken Garviel, hello, greetings, good to see you. So yeah, there's Easter Sunday. So check out Easter Sunday. Okay, hold on a second. We could probably do the Ben Shapiro. We're here. What the hell? Ben Shapiro. Now, he's very pro-marriage. I certainly understand his point. Right? I can understand the point. Hold on. Let me get Ben up here. Hold on here. Oh, come on. Jeez. Another commercial. Come on. Okay. All right. Right. Okay. All right. Hold on. Hoo-doo-doo. Da-da-da-da-da-da. That in there. Paste. Basically, it's the same topic. Of course, Ben's inimitable take on it. But you see, Ben,
There's something that folks,
Ben is
call
very
online the celebration paradox.
Shh. Ben is I think he's a practicing Jew, right? And of course, they have certain religious beliefs, and one is marriage, children, and all that. I get it. Yeah, it's wonderful. The problem is, Ben's a lawyer too. You think Ben, again, they have specialties where maybe that's not his thing. Maybe he's a corporate lawyer. I don't know what his lawyering is. Well, when you're talking about divorce court, it is absolutely dangerous. It's almost off limits to most men if you have any sanity left in your brain. Why would you do this? Well, for family, for kids. Yeah. No, I understand. But clearly something ain't working. If we're under replacement rate, you see what I'm saying? Go on.
There's something that folks call online the celebration paradox. The celebration paradox is essentially when a person on the left says a thing, and they say it in celebratory fashion, and it's good. It's a good thing. And then you say, well, I don't like that thing so much. And they say, how dare you even notice this thing? You're not celebrating. And if you're not celebrating it, this means that you're super bad. If you even mention that it's happening, this means that you are super bad.
Yeah, super bad, and you're some kind of an ism or an ist or something. Yep, it's the playbook.
There's a great example of this yesterday. Chuck Schumer, who is going to maintain his majority leader status thanks to Republican underperformance in the last midterm election.
God almighty.
Chuck Schumer yesterday, he was talking about why there needs to be a amnesty for 11 million illegal immigrants.
Except there's 30.
And the case that essentially he made was the Great Replacement Theory.
Yep.
So the Great Replacement Theory is this theory that basically there are people who are purposefully bringing in folks from south of the border to replace people who are not being born in the United States in an attempt to change the demographics of the country.
Okay. Yeah, that's certainly one theory that's out there. Yeah. Yep. True.
And that's considered a racist theory because after all, the idea that there are people who are being shipped into the country of different races and ethnicities, and that's going to change the demographic makeup of the country and therefore the voting base of the country. If you oppose this means that you are a racist. Now, here's the reality. As somebody who believes that ethnicity is not destiny.
Of course. What else? What's the current? Yeah, I mean, what's the big epithet? What's the big? You don't like this thing because you're an R word or you're a this or you're a that. It's not because it doesn't make any sense. Of course not.
The demography is not destiny. I don't really care where people come from so long as they actually reflect the principles of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. And as we've seen throughout American history, there are populations that come here and they come in seeking welfare benefits or they come in seeking democratic policies, and then they shift over to the Republican side of the aisle, and we're evenly split. You're seeing this happening right now, for example, in the American Hispanic community.
Yeah.
And the American Hispanic community voted much more evenly Republican Democrat in the last midterm election than they did a couple of election cycles ago. So populations change. But the theory that was put out there by people on the right was originally promoted by people on the left. Or we talked about this, that Roy Teixeira, John Judas, they wrote an entire book called The New Emerging Democratic Coalition. New Emerging Democratic Majority that suggested this was the future of the Democratic Party.
I didn't know that. I'll have to investigate that.
That for about 20 years, this was the line from the Democratic Party. That there was going to be a rising coalition of minorities and they were going to vote heavily Democrat and they were going to replace the white voters of the United States. The white voters were going to decrease in the size and scope. And therefore, there would be an everlasting Democratic majority.
Well, it's been kind of happening. Yeah.
And people on the right, some people on the right were like, well, that's bad. And the answer to that is to restrict immigration. There were some people who were racially tinged who were like, well, it's about race, right? The Democrats are talking in terms of race. And so we will also talk in terms of race. Neither of those two things are good. But
that's all they ever do, though. You're only a racist or you're a misogynist, you're a this, you're a that. If you don't believe with our bullshit policies, whatever they happen to be, if you disagree with this or that, or you're a this and a that and an ist and an ism, we get it. It's the playbook. It's pretty obvious.
you were labeled a crazy person if you suggested that there were Democrats who, in fact, are seeking to change the demographic of the electorate to promote particular purposes. Well, Chuck Schumer, who is the Senate Majority Leader, just said it out loud yesterday. It's kind of amazing. Now, if you say it and you're smiling about it, then it's good. If you say it and you're not smiling about it, then this means that you're evil and Hitlerian. So here is Chuck Schumer saying just the great replacement theory yesterday.
Now, I think part of this is it seems every time they kind of win an election, they get more emboldened. They're more emboldened to speak out and say what people have been thinking for quite a while. They're not afraid to say these things anymore. Like Bernie Sanders. Oh, yeah, we got a Democrat socialism. Well, nobody would have said something like that 10 years ago. It just wouldn't have been said. But they start winning elections, and it's like, oh, yeah, well, let's take the next step. Democrat socialism and all that kind of shit. That's what I think it partially is. When they win elections, it's like, oh, yeah, we're going to go whole. We're going to just floor it, baby. Pedal to the metal.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship.
I mean, it's an amazing statement. And he says the birth rate part right out loud. Like there are people on the other side of the aisle who say, well, declining American birth rates are actually a really, really bad thing. And if you wish to have a durable civilization, you need to actually reproduce within that civilization. You can't just keep bringing in people from other civilizations. And then, especially if you're the Democrats and you have no interest in actually assimilating people to American traditions, American ways of life, you don't actually like those ways of life. You think the Constitution and the Declaration are kind of bad, that they're systemically racist or whatever. And when you bring people in from other civilizations who don't actually have any history with those particular documents or those particular ideas, that's a bad thing. But if you're Chuck Schumer and you say it's a good thing, then it's totally, totally fine.
That's right. And if you object, you're obviously a racist. You're a Hitlerian Nazi.
Well, this speaks to something broader. Okay, what this speaks to is an underlying question. And that question came up in the U.S. Senate yesterday. What this speaks to, the part that we can talk about the immigration, the fact that Chuck Schumer's immigration policy is ridiculous, that you leave a wide open border and you propose to amnesty 11 million illegal immigrants. And what you're really doing is you're creating a giant sucking sound north.
That's right. That's as I discussed in the previous video. You've got people that probably are illegally here in places like Homestead, Florida. In the hot summer in Florida, in the middle of the summer, these poor people are out picking freaking vegetables and tomatoes and shit. It's 100 degrees, 100% humidity. It's brutal. And they're paid poorly, right? Now, if you give these folks citizenship, you got amnesty, baby. You're now a U.S. citizen. You think they're going to pick fruit in Homestead, Florida, when they can get a job at the Toyota factory in Tennessee for a lot more money, better working conditions? I mean, this is not hard. And so what Ben is kind of getting at, and I was trying to get at, but I didn't make it very clear, even if they do amnesty, they still have to leave the border open. Or else who's going to pick the fruit? Right?
Essentially, you're saying that anyone who crosses the border illegally will eventually become.
And I personally think it's modern slavery, actually, to bring in folks from overseas, Cuba, Haiti, whatever, pay them substandard wages, shitty living conditions, horrible working environment. It's modern slavery. It's the way I look at it.
An American citizen, we're already having month on month 240,000 border encounters between border police and people attempting to get across the border. That's not including the gotaways. And the number of people who are immigrating to the country illegally right now is extraordinarily high. We're talking millions of people every single year.
Millions of people every single year. And they've been using this 11 million number for 15 years. You can do the math on that.
3 million people every single year. These are big, big numbers.
Yep.
Okay, but put aside the immigration issue. The issue that he sort of states and then just blows right past is the fact that Americans are not having babies.
Yep.
The fact that in the West, people have just stopped having babies. The declining birth rates are actually a problem. Now, we on the right say, yes, declining birth rates are a problem. They're a moral problem. They, by the way, are also a logistical problem. The fact is that if you are on the left and you wish to support a massive inverted pyramid of a social structure in which a few people are supporting a lot of people on welfare, And then the demographic base of that inverted pyramid is getting smaller and smaller because fewer and fewer babies are going to be born. What you need to do is ship in a bunch of cheap labor in order to prop up that demographic base.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. If these folks are given amnesty, they're not cheap labor anymore. Let's see.
That's essentially the case that he's making, Chuck Schumer. It's a bad case. It's a bad moral case.
Yeah.
The answer would be, theoretically, maybe people in America should have more babies.
I wonder if
you could, more on this in just 1 second.
Hold on a second here. They did something like this in Hungary, I believe. They incentivize people to have children with a tax structure. If you have so many kids, you never have to pay income taxes, all that. That could work.
Second, first, folks, do you feel like you ever don't get the respect you deserve?
Yes.
Well, there's one way you can get that respect right away, and that is established titles.
Established
titles is your Scotland, plus an official unique gift for any occasion. There are even couples packs that come with adjoining plots of land for that special someone in your life. With your certificate, you could officially add the prefix of Lord or Lady to your credit cards, plane tickets, even your dating profiles. Plus, established titles commits to present to Anne for every order they receive.
And they plant some trees as well in Scotland. So that's
tree is planted. And get this. Established Titles told me the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my exclusive link receive a plot within a few walking minutes of my own.
No way. We could go see Ben's plot.
Over in Shapiro Stand. So, depending on how many of you want to become a lord or lady, we can build our own kingdom. And from there, we only spread our tentacles outward. Established Titles is actually running a massive sale right now. Plus, if you use code Ben, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com. Institutions, it's
kind of a cute idea, really.
That parents who have a history with those institutions actually have kids. But folks on the left don't actually want people to have kids, apparently.
No.
Right? That's not one of the solutions he proposes. Is not maybe we should have more babies. Maybe we should encourage people to get married and have babies. That's not one of the solutions. The solution is, what if we bring people from different parts of the world who may or may not share our values? And frankly, we don't care if they share our values. And actually, we kind of hope they don't share our values because we don't even share our values. Yeah, that's Chuck Schumer's proposal. And that's an amazing proposal. And it blows right past the problem at the core of our civilization, which is that we are a civilization that does not have a future. We have taken all the fundamental elements of a civilization and we have carved them away in the name of radical individual autonomy.
Feminism. You'd almost think it was a plan, wouldn't you?
This is not a call for fascism. This is not a call for restricting people by force of law. What this is a call for is encouraging the durability of social institutions that undergird every fundamental civilizational good. And one of those happens to be marriage.
Okay. And again, I don't necessarily disagree with Ben here, but the problem is the law. The problem is this shit has been designed by the powers that be to drive men and women apart. It's not a secret anymore. This is the fruition of their plan.
I know that we in this country, we've redefined marriage. We've decided that marriage doesn't matter anymore. But it turns out that when you get rid of marriage and people are getting married at 28 and 30, if they even get married at all, and when they're having one kid instead of 4 kids, and when the number of people who are getting married at all is declining markedly, what you end up with is a population that doesn't reproduce.
By design, Ben. That's right.
And a population that doesn't actually pass on values to its kids because it doesn't have any kids. And this is a major problem.
Why do you want to oppress women, Ben? Why do you want women to not have a career? Oh, my God. Why is that? See, it's much better if they wait till they're 37 and pray to God that if they can't find a man, they can freeze their eggs for later.
This is why I've been talking a lot over the past week about the issue of same-sex marriage. And a lot of folks are like, well, it's a dead issue. I mean, the Supreme Court decided in Obergefell. Well, yes, it is a legally dead issue because it has been decided in Obergefell. But any society that redefines marriage itself is making an enormous mistake. Is making an enormous mistake. So yesterday, the Senate of the United States voted to push forward same-sex marriage legislation that they are calling the Respect for Marriage Act, which is absurd. It is not a Respect for Marriage Act because when you fundamentally change the definition of the word marriage, that is not respect for marriage.
Yeah, well, not the traditional, because that also had to be destroyed. Again, it's all part of the plan. This is no surprise to anyone who's been following this. And I know Ben, he gets it too. He just doesn't normally just come out and say, but that's the plan. It's been the plan. You destroy the church in the 50s and the early 60s. You get feminism. You get the birth control pill. You get free love and the revolution. You get abortion. Women have to have a career, and screw those children. You can always have kids. Go out and ride the carousel, et cetera, and so on. Reduces bonding between men and women when they get married, eventually, if they do. Divorce laws, child custody, alimony. It's not by accident. This is not something that just popped up. Hey, it's a plan. And it has been a plan ever since 1848, people.
You can call it a lot of things. You can't call it respect for marriage. You can suggest that it is an enshrinement of same-sex marriage. You can call it the broadening of rights if that's the rubric you wish to use. What you can't suggest is that it's respect for marriage. It's as though you are changing the definition of the color blue to yellow, and then you call the act the respect for blue act. That's not what it is. When you fundamentally change the definition of a thing, that is not respect for the thing, that is changing the thing.
Now, I just wonder, do gay couples that get together and get married, do they have the same trouble with alimony and all that? I'm sure they do. Why wouldn't
they? Acknowledge what is happening here. Well, according to the Wall Street Journal, landmark legislation that would cement same-sex marriage rights into federal law cleared a decisive hurdle in the Senate on Wednesday, with lawmakers aiming to get the measure to President Biden's desk in the coming weeks. The 62-37 vote underscored how a once politically divisive issue now draws bipartisan support, despite opposition from some social...
Oh, another commercial. Oh, look at that. It's. Do you agree that the previous ad is relevant to you? Neutral.
Social conservatives, less than a decade after same-sex marriage became legal nationwide under a 2015 Supreme Court ruling.
Right.
Okay, so it is 2022. It has been 7 years. Mm-hmm. In 7 short years, the Republican Party, like 1/3 of the senators in the Republican Party, actually supported a bill that defines marriage in federal law as man, man, female, female.
And welcome to the Uniparty, Ben.
Which is an amazing, amazing thing. I mean, that is a social transformation on a massive scale.
All these people care about is power. They throw red meat out once in a while about guns or abortion or something, but they don't care. They just want to retain power. That's it.
The Respect for Marriage Act, if signed into law, would codify the ability of same-sex as well as interracial couples to get married. Okay, so the reason that the left added interracial couples is because nobody's had a problem with that for literally decades in the United States.
Yeah.
Like no one. If you look at the rates in polls of people who approve of interracial relationships, the answer is nearly 100%. The Democrats threw that in there so that they can say that if you voted against this, it's because you don't like interracial marriage, right? It's just,
yeah, of course, yeah. It's a poison pill. Who is against interracial marriage? Who? You know, some old Confederate type racist in the South somewhere? I don't know.
One of these stupid legislative tricks that people...
Excuse me, though. Getting back to, I was going to say getting back to the Supreme Court. Marriage is not in the Constitution either. So how can the federal government do this? Just curious.
People play all the time with omnibus packages, as I mentioned yesterday. They basically have a crap sandwich of a bill, and you add in one provision that's good, and then people vote against the crap sandwich and say, oh, well, you oppose the provision that's good.
Or you hate the truth.
You pass a $1 trillion boondoggle. But in there you say, and also we wish to give $1 million to women who have disabled babies. Mm-hmm. And you're like, I'm not going to vote for that bill. Like, well, you hate women with disabled babies. This is the stupid game that we play in American legislative politics. It's not
both sides do it.
About interracial marriage. That's not what this bill is about at all. It is about same-sex marriage, obviously.
I mean, there were some states that had slavery on the ballot. 13th Amendment got rid of slavery. What the hell?
The bill needed 60 votes to proceed under Senate rules, and it got apparently 62. The proposal faces at least one more vote in the Senate. It would need approval by the House by the end of the year to become law. So they're going to try and ram this thing through before Republicans take over the House of Representatives.
Of course, yeah.
Joe Biden reiterated Wednesday he backed the legislation. The House is expected to pass it after approving a similar bill earlier this year. Mm-hmm. So what exactly happened here? Well, what is in the bill? It basically says that even if Obergefell were to be overturned in the future, the federal definition of marriage would still include male, male, female, female. Also, it does not require states to issue licenses to same-sex couples, but it does require states to essentially assume full faith and credit for marriages that happen in other states. So let's say Texas does not have same-sex marriage, but California does. Okay, so you get on a plane, you get married in California, you come back to Texas, and now Texas has to treat your same-sex marriage the same way under law it would treat a male-female dyad.
Again, sounds like an overreach to me. But maybe they're getting around it by saying, well, we can't force you, but they are going to force you. They're going to say if you get married in Vermont or whatever, and you happen to be a gay couple, you move to Texas. I don't think it's illegal in Texas, but if it were illegal in Texas, they'd have to recognize it anyway. So you are forcing the states to do things. I don't know how that works.
That's what this says. What it also says is it says that if you have a sincere religious belief and it's within the context of a religious institution, then the law cannot force you to cater to same-sex couples. So, for example, you are a church. The law, under the federal law, can't force you to participate in a same-sex marriage.
Okay.
The nonprofit status shall not be endangered if you are a church. Now, first of all, the reality is that the Supreme Court would be very likely to rule that way anyway. So you're not actually adding any additional rights for religious people.
Okay.
So that's been the sort of fig leaf for the Republicans who are, well, we're broadening religious rights. We're just acknowledging the reality, and then we are broadening religious rights. That's not what this is doing. You're not broadening one single thing in this bill.
No.
Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be getting into all the reaction to Donald Trump's 2024 announcement. Plus, the Wall Street Journal interviews some single people who are discovering that being single isn't all that great. If you're not a member, click the link.
Imagine that. So yeah, that's Ben's take. I mean, he's all for marriage, like I said. I understand, but currently the way it's in law, it's just not it's a scary deal for men. I mean, imagine you marry a woman and she just turns into a raging hoe. She's out banging all kinds of dudes. Sure, you can get a divorce, but then she gets half of the shit and the kids. Do you see? It's a lose-lose for men. It's a win-win for women. I just don't understand how in God's name this crap got passed with no-fault divorce and all this junk. It's amazing. Change that, you might see more people getting married and having babies. You might. You never know. Bullets for Teeth says, being single is not that great. Well, it's probably women whining because they can't, I can't get Chad. You know how it is. Thumper, I do not have to imagine it, hamster. Yes, I know. Most of the guys here probably have been through it. Yeah, the real question is with the 100 or the 1,000 pages of the bill. Nobody reads this shit. All they do is say, well, if you don't vote for this, we're going to call you a racist because it's interracial marriage. Ben's down to 100% right. Yeah. Briggs Jr., oh my goodness, look who's back. 72. Anyone who's been, I don't know. Speak for yourself, mister. Anyway, Easter_Sunday. The link is in the description. I am going to go to bed. You guys have a good night. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.